This is what Thomas Jefferson saw from Monticello. The view as perfect as his high ideals.
Well, I'd like to welcome you to our Slavery at Monticello tour.
But at Monticello today, it is the imperfect Jefferson we see.
Monticello was a plantation.
And must judge for ourselves.
Jefferson professed to hate slavery, called it an abominable crime, but he held on to his slaves. He freed only 7.
The author of the Declaration of Independence, who wrote that all men are created equal, owned 600 slaves over his lifetime. And in addition to his legitimate children, almost certainly fathered at least 6 other children with his slave, Sally Hemings.
For generations, descendants of Sally Hemings have been telling stories implicating Jefferson as father of her children.
DNA proof of a connection came in 1998. Is Thomas Jefferson any less great because the understanding we have of him now is 3-dimensional?
Most human beings I know are quite capable of denial and hypocrisy. And I think that Jefferson's virtues were enormous and his vices were equally enormous.
Pulitzer Prize-winning author John Meacham has just published a best-selling new biography of our third president.
Looked at in full, you find a man whose life was made possible by slavery, who had misgivings, who as a young man attempted, however feebly, to reform the institution, but in the end, he was ultimately someone who was allowed himself to be trapped by the economic, political, and cultural circumstances into which he was born.
Jefferson said that his earliest memory was of being handed up on a pillow as a toddler to a slave on a horse. And we know that his last words were asking Burl Colbert to adjust his pillow here in this room.
Jefferson's butler, Burl Colbert, was also a slave.
There would have been an intimate relationship really from birth to death.
Elizabeth Chu is curator at Monticello. Now, are there pieces of furniture in this room that were made by slaves?
Yes. In the joinery or the furniture-making wood shop in Jefferson's later years was run by a slave named John Hemings. And Hemings ran the joinery and made many pieces of furniture that are in Monticello today. This is an example. He was very highly skilled, and he was freed by Jefferson in his will and given the tools of his trade.
John Hemings is remembered because of his craftsmanship, unlike so many other Jefferson slaves.
To be able to sort of have an image of Jefferson that we all know, and behind him the names of the 600 people that he owned in his lifetime, really means that we have to understand slavery in order to understand Jefferson.
Lonnie Bunch heads the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture, sponsor of a traveling exhibition about slavery at Monticello.
And what's powerful is, quite candidly, we only know the first names. And there are some that we just have as unknown because we don't even know.
Lucy, where it's almost any old name.
That's exactly right. This is Thomas Jefferson's laptop desk. This is the desk upon which he wrote early drafts of the Declaration of Independence.
The first of those drafts attacked Britain's slave trade, Jefferson writing that King George III has waged cruel war against human nature itself. The Continental Congress took the phrase out. Alongside the rejected passage, the financial reality.
Next to it is his farm book, and here is where he would list the births and deaths of the slaves. He would list the work that they did. So in some ways, it really gives us a full picture of the totality of Jefferson.
Which at times contradicts the popular image of Jefferson as a benevolent slaveholder.
The nailry occupied one half of this site. Inside there were 4 forges.
One example, what went on at Jefferson's extremely profitable nail-making workshop at Monticello.
As a young child, your job was to move the nails around, but by the time you're 12, 13, 14, your job is to make these nails.
The boys were routinely whipped to force them to be more productive.
That happened while Jefferson was on Monticello. It happened when he was gone, because in the 18th century, you couldn't run a plantation without using violence.
A man of his time, Jefferson thought he was benevolent, but even his plan for ending slavery would be considered racist today.
His view was that at best there could be an emancipation, but then there would be repatriation, there would be colonization. African American slaves would leave the United States. He did not foresee a biracial integrated society. One of the many ironies of his life, because he created a biracial society at Monticello.
Which, that's going to get into, the point of this lesson. Black Edomites. That's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to make it short. But I want to make 2 points before I continue. It's simple. Revelations 13 and 9, which I'll give right now. Okay. Let's see, I'll just use my Bible. So Revelations 13 and 9. Salakia. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. And pretty much that's what's going to happen to the majority of the Edomites that put us in slavery. It's simple. We have drunk the cup of trembling. All right. And you Edomites, y'all going to drink the same cup, but it's going to be double. All right. What proves that? Lamentations 2. Select, let me see. 4 and 21. All right. So Lamentations 4 and 21. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwellest in the land of Uz. Okay. It says the cup also shall pass through unto thee. Thou shalt be drunken and shalt make thyself naked. The punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. He will no more carry thee away into captivity. All right. And that was one of the notorious things that happened to us time in and time out, was we got put into captivity. We were made slaves to nations. That was one of the biggest things that always happened to Israel on many different occasions. All right. One of the biggest now is the transatlantic slave trade, which they try to push under the rug. But you so-called white people, we call you so-called white people because you're not the color of the white. All right. Your skin is translucent. And that's the same for blacks. You're not actually black. That's the color of a crayon. All right. That's not a nationality. All right. But it says, to focus on verse 21, rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwellest in the land of Uz. America is spiritually the land of Uz. All right. It has spiritual traits as these land masses of antiquity that America still holds to this day. All right. Certain merits and certain philosophies from these different countries that America holds till to this day. All right. It says the cup also shall pass through unto thee. Thou shalt be drunken and shalt make thyself naked. All right. And that cup represents the terribleness of slavery. Pretty much slavery itself. OK. And them having to be servants unto us. All right. Because the majority of them are going to get killed here in America. But the elites, the ones that have reaped the benefits of slavery, they're going to be put into slavery themselves. OK. And that's pretty much my first point I want to make. My second point is the Black Edomites. You have Black Edomites that are among us. You have them mainly working in politics and inside the government. Some of them that you hold near and dear to your heart, they're Edomites themselves, But all this is scriptural.
This is an artist's imagined portrait of Sally Hemings, sister of John Hemings, the furniture maker. She was also believed to be Thomas Jefferson's wife Martha's half-sister. The entire Hemings family ended up at Monticello. But it was in Paris in the 1780s, while Jefferson, by then a widower, was U.S. Minister to France, that he supposedly began a nearly 40-year sexual liaison with Sally, who was there with him. By law, she was free in France. Before agreeing to return to Virginia, to slavery, she set conditions.
According to her descendants, she said, "I will go back with you if any children we have are allowed to be freed at 21. Jefferson must have been totally flummoxed by this strong-willed, I think quite courageous woman.
In September 1802, a Richmond, Virginia newspaper outed Jefferson, saying, "By this wench, Sally, our president has had several children." After that, the Jefferson-Hemings story was whispered from one generation to the next for nearly 200 years by descendants of Sally Hemings, many of whom passed for white.
It's been an interesting journey for me because it started out when I was a kid, me standing up in class and saying, Thomas Jefferson is my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, and being so happy and proud to brag about it when we're studying the presidents. But then when the teacher says, sit down and stop telling lies, and all the kids laugh at you.
By the mid-1990s, the laughing had stopped. Historians, even at Monticello, were becoming believers. Television reporter Shannon Lanier is a direct descendant of Sally Hemings through her son Madison Hemings.
Before that reunion, I had only known the Hemings descendants from Madison line of the family. I didn't even know the Jefferson line.
Shannon Lanier, right in front there, was 19 when he attended the controversial first ever combined Hemings-Jefferson family reunion at Monticello in 1999. Afterward,
Now, the point is, not all of them are Edomites, but the majority of those blacks that look, so-called blacks that look like, Jake, they're Edomites. And that line goes back to what? A Edomite, okay? And it's all about lineage. It's all about, the father seed, okay? It's important. It's extremely important. That's why you always hear that about in the scriptures, this, the father seed. Now, which I can go there, edify, let me see, Numbers 1 and 18. Salakia, because that's how Israel declared the nationality, by the fruit or the loins of their father. Perfect example, Deuteronomy 1 and 18. Salakia. Or is it Judges 1 and 18? I'm sorry. Salakia, it's Numbers 1 and 18. All right, so this is how we declare who we are. All right, Numbers 1 and 18. And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names from 20 years old and upward by their polls. So the pedigree, what means lineage. All right. Pedigree is determining your lineage. So for all people in the world, all right, because the Most High created us all, all right, and it's the same principle for us all right. The man carries the seed, the woman carries the egg, and there you go. You got our people you have people that look like Edomites who are actually Israelites, and then you got Edomites who look like blacks who are Edomites, all right? If that makes any sense. But the point being is that, we got these Edomites among us, and that's part of the scriptures, okay? And Yahushua spoke on that. All right, so I'm going to play a little bit more on this, and I'm going to just go ahead and finish that point for you, brothers.
and Jane Feldman, the photographer who took this picture.
All right, so another question that might be posed: how do we know we're Israelites if you can't trace your lineage back? Well, the scripture, it tells you. it's pretty simple. You know, the Lord has made this thing simple for us. He didn't make it that difficult. He didn't make it, you know, so difficult where we couldn't find who we were. All right, because He's going to wake up His elect according to His will. All right, Romans 8:16, it says, "For the Spirit itself bear witness with our spirit that we are the children of God." All right, so the Spirit bears witness. Okay, so if your lineage goes back to you know, who you are according to your father, if it goes back to the 12 patriarchs, you are of the seed. If it doesn't, if it goes back through so-called white man's lineage, you are of the house of Esau, and that's how simple it is. But we have most of our people that don't have this basic understanding, and we have to, you know, show them, you know, regardless if they want to believe it or not, you know, prophesy unto the wind, but we prophesy so we can wipe the blood off our hands. All right. So the scriptures talk about, you know, black Edomites. Okay. That's what I call them. All right. For lack of better words, you know, Slaki. Let's go to Matthew. Okay. Matthew chapter, let me see what chapter. 13 verses 24 says, "Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way." All right. So you pretty much mixing the seed. All right. And one example is Herod. Okay, because he had features of an Israelite, but he was an Edomite. Okay. If you know the story, that pretty much his mother was dealing with Esau, and Esau was pretty much marrying into Israel, because we have wicked ones among us that went out among us, as the scriptures say, that consented unto their way and allowed them to, you know, marry our daughters, and vice versa. Okay. The same thing that we actually go through today and see today. Okay. So verse 26, "But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also." All right. So that fruit represents what? Pretty much the truth. Okay. When the truth comes, and that's pretty much when everybody is going to be revealed. It says, "So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou," Slaki, it says, "didst not thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence then hath it tares?" He said unto them, "An enemy hath done this." The servants said unto him, "Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up?" But he said, "Nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, you root up also the wheat with them." All right. "Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers, gather ye together first the tares and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn." And the wheat represents pretty much the elect. Okay. And the tares represents those who are pretty much a black Edomites, you could say. Okay. Those of the other nations that somehow, you know, laid down with one of our women, and, you know, have their seed looks like us, but they're not of us. Okay. So for the most part, everything is spiritual now. Okay. So we know who we are through the Spirit. You know, we know through the Spirit what our lineage goes back to. Okay. Because we have certain traits that tie us together. All right. So it says, "Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers, gather ye together first the tares and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn." Okay. So it's pretty much telling you, man, that when the time comes, the Lord is going to separate those that are his and those that are not. Okay, which proves that the Lord is about division. All right. So you got those that look like us and they're in leadership positions and they're all into politics. Well, Most High is going to destroy them, okay, because they're not of our seed. But it just shows you how diverse this thing is that everybody that's black ain't, is not a Israelite, okay, and everybody that's white is not an Edomite. But through the Spirit, we know who we are, and that pretty much concludes the lessons. Just wanted to show you that. I know brothers have ran into that plenty of times, but for those who haven't, there you go. I want to give all praises to Yahweh by Shem Shai, always, and double honors to the apostles and elders at Great Millstone. And signing off, Shalom.